Hello, my name's Rhonda R. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 15th, 2008. I come from the Came to Believe group. They are in Rocky Mount. We meet on Tuesdays and Fridays from 7 to 8. All of our meetings are closed meetings with the exception of the last Friday. The first 3 Tuesdays, we meet on Tuesday and Friday if I skimmed over that. Our first 3 Tuesdays, we study out of the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. We go cover to cover. It takes a little over 2 years. On the 4th Tuesday, we study the tradition that correlates with the number of the month we're in. And when there's a 5th Tuesday, we study AA history, believing it's important to know where we came from and just to move forward. On Fridays, the chairperson picks a topic out of AA-approved conference-approved literature and calls on the membership to share. And then our only open meeting is the last Friday of the month, and we have just brought back our world-class refreshments, which indeed is a meal. So if you come and eat with us, if you leave hungry, it's your own fault, or we didn't come up to par. And we celebrate our home group memberships' AA birthdays at that time. I'm supposed to tell you in a general way what I was like, what happened, and what I am like today. I can tell you, Sandy is correct. She has seen me from the very beginning. Well, she's seen me after I had about 13 months of nothing in me, and so if she talks about what a mess I was, you can imagine what I was before then. I'm not going to try to get stuck in the drunk-a-law because we all know how to drink. But anyway, a little bit of history so I can qualify myself. I was raised in Winston-Salem. That's where I grew up. That's where I did all my drinking. Well, not all. I did some in Davidson County, Stokes County, Pender County. I didn't do any here. And my mom walked out when I was 3 years old, and I didn't hear again from my mother for 13 years. So at a very young age, I dealt with abandonment issues. My grandparents took me and my younger brother on. When she left, my dad worked 3rd shift, so even though he was there physically, he was not there emotionally. And so I always just dreamed of having a mom. You know, I went to school in elementary school, and it was just different. You know, everybody else had a mom and a dad. I had a grandma and a grandpa. And I am now older than my grandmother was when she took us on by about 10 years. My grandma looked old. So I am really hoping I don't look old. But anyway, I was raised in a Southern Baptist home. Brimstone and hellfire, you know, you've got to abide by certain rules and behave a certain way, or you are going to end up in the pit of hell. And so I was in church every Sunday night, every Wednesday night, and I just went. You know, I have never been the smartest tool in the shed. I will gladly admit that. I don't comprehend a lot of what I read, and I'm rebellious is what it comes down to. I'm a rebel, and that was evident from a young age. My dad remarried, and I was tickled to death to have a mom and 2 sisters, and they were not tickled to have me. Me and my stepmom butted heads and didn't get along. And so at the age of 13, searching. You know, my mom's walked off. I don't hear from her. Me and my stepmom don't get along. And I am searching and searching for, I don't even know what I'm searching for. I'm just searching for something. You know how Dr. Phil, if you watch him, I haven't watched him in a long time, but he says if men do not raise their daughters with love and respect, then the first time a little boy whispers in her ear, game on. Well, that's what happened to me. At age 13, I got mixed up with the schoolmate and her older siblings, and we went out and I had my first drink. I had my first other stuff, which there's a lot of other stuff, but I will just eliminate that to the best of my ability. And boys, I met boys. And so at 13, I thought all that stuff filled that hole, filled what I was searching for, and it did for many, many years. At the age of 16, my mother called my dad's house, and she said, Emmy, that's what they called my dad back then, this is Earlene. My mom had a very distinctive voice. He knew who it was, and she wanted me to fly out to Colorado. Will you let Rhonda come out to Colorado and meet me? And he said, yeah. So at the age of 16, I'm getting on a plane, and the stewardess says, no smoking? I'm like, oh, no. I'm smoking because I think I'm grown. And I flew out to Colorado when school was over. And my mom picked me up at the airport. Now, I can imagine my mom thought she was getting back that 3-year-old she walked away from. What she got was just a hot mess that was drinking and doing other things and looking for the boys. So needless to say, me and my biological mother did not get along. And we came back for a court hearing for custody at the age of 16. And the judge wanted me to stay in Winston, but my dad, the lovely enabler he is, he said, if that's where you want to go, if that's what'll make you happy, go back. Well, I wasn't going back to be with my mom. I had done met a fella. I was going back to be with the fella. I also, my idea of a soulmate back then was a redneck, was somebody that did illegal stuff, was the bad boy, and that made me somebody, So went back, got married at the age of 17. And Fertile Myrtle opened up, I got married, and 10 months later I had my first son at the age of 18. 2 years later I had my second son, and in between those two boys we had decided to move back to Winston. So we came back to Winston-Salem, and so at the age of 20 I was married. I had 2 boys, 2 years apart, and turned 21, and now I'm legal. And so my cousin was 18 months older than me, and she said, well, let's go out to this nightclub. And the band, I don't know how, look, all this is fuzzy. All I know is we ended up talking to the band and going backstage, and they had moonshine and drank it. And I vaguely remember staggering up the aisle to get out of that place. And I was hanging my head out the car window, throwing up, and somebody came and took my keys and says, we're not allowing you to drive home. So I stayed there all night and got my keys and went back, and husband was not happy, like, where have you been? So anyway, shortly after that, I got tired of him. So I just walked off, I left the kids behind, I left him behind, and I walked off, and I met another fella shortly after, and 6 years later I had my third son. During that time, he introduced me to some heavier stuff, and I got into criminal activity. So I started my judicial process. At the age of 28, I started doing criminal activity, and at the age of 28, I find myself at North Carolina Department of Corrections there in Raleigh. Now, back then, I had an 8-month sentence, so back then, as soon as you walked through the gates and got processed, your sentence was cut in half. So I really only had to do 4 months, which isn't anything. You know, most people do that standing on their head. And so I did that, and I got released. They put me on a bus to go back to Winston-Salem. And the normal person would call mom, call dad, call somebody. I'm calling the people I shouldn't call. And so anyway, that was my life for about 15, 20 years. Just in and out of jails from Pender County, Iredell County, Davidson County, Stokes County, and Forsyth County. I was just a revolving door. They got frequent flyers. I was a frequent inmate. Yeah. Me and the COs knew each other on a first name basis. Me and the judge knew each other on a first name basis. Every time I went to court, I got the same judge. And I used to think, what are the chances of that? Well, now I know that was God doing for me. You know, He had a plan. I didn't know what the plan was, but He just kept putting me in front of this same judge. So anyway, that was just, you know, men. Pick them up, get out of them what I can get out of them, whether it's a babysitter for my boys or a home or whatever. And about 4 years later, I'm done. And I would just walk off again. With that said, me and my first husband, we used my 2 boys as pawns. My mom, when I went to prison, she came and took my youngest son to keep him out of the state, and so she raised my youngest son. And I didn't know it at then, but I know it now. I was doing the same thing that my mom had done to me that I was so mad about her doing. She walked off from me once. I walked off from my 2 boys too many times. You know, I would just hook up with somebody, here come the boys, and when I got tired of whatever it was I wanted and didn't get, or was tired, or the money had ran out, I would just walk off and leave my boys, usually with men that they didn't really know. And it was just sad. My 10-year-old, my oldest son, when he was 10 and 12, he was taking on adult responsibilities. Because I get racked up doing something, you know, stealing. That was my thing. If it wasn't forging checks, it was boosting. And so I guess most of y'all know what boosting is. And one of those, when I went to prison in 1989, when I was 28, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. If you've never been to prison, let me give you a little education so you can decide if you want to go there or not. You get one of the best physicals, so if you haven't had a physical in a while, that's where you go. They do give you a good physical. They check every hole you have, and it's not always in a private setting. And they check you for every disease known to mankind. Now, back in 1989, AIDS had just come to the forefront. That it came out in 1985. And so when they did my blood work, they called me back up and they said I was under the name Myatt. That's another little tidbit. If you ever go to prison, whatever that name is the first time, that's the name you have for the rest of your life in there. They don't switch your name because you remarry or whatever. You just get the same name over and over. They said, Your blood work indicates that you have the HIV virus, so we're pulling you from your work detail, which happened to be in the kitchen. And when you get pulled from the kitchen, people start questioning why. And you think news travels fast in a small town. Try being on a camp with 2,500 women. And it was bad. So anyway, when I got released, they told me, they said, Miss Myatt, you got about 5 years to live, so I suggest when you go home, you get your affairs in order. Well, I told you what I did when I went home. I called somebody I shouldn't have been calling and just reverted right back. My thing is, if I'm going to go out of here, I'm going out of here sideways. I am just going to party the rest of my life away. So anyway, fast forward, back to where I was. That was my life. I drank as much as I could. I managed to always have a job, and I never went to work drunk, but I can't say I ever went to work sober either. And so some of my antics when I drank, let's see, I went to I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, I got married a second time in the 90s. My boys were teenagers or becoming teenagers, and my oldest son is no small dude. I mean, he's like 6'2". At that time, he was probably 180 pounds. I mean, I couldn't tackle him, and so I was looking for a man that would help me raise them boys, keep them in line. So I met this guy, got married to him, and you know what? I just gained another child. I mean, that guy went to work, but then when he came home, all he wanted to play was video games. Well, darn, my boys can do that on their own very well. I need somebody that was going to, whip them into shape, do your homework, do your chores. So that one again lasted about 4 years. And without fifth stepping from the podium, I met husband number 3 in the 80s, and I was his nanny, and that didn't work out, not due to my fault, it was my fault and his fault, but his wife didn't appreciate things, and so she hauled me out of there. And then in the early 90s, when I left husband number 2, well, let me tell you about that story, how that evolved. So I was working at Bojangles there in Winston-Salem on University Parkway, and the manager and I were best friends. I'd gotten a call from the guy whose wife didn't appreciate us, or me specifically, and I'd actually reached out to his family and said I'd like to see him one more time. I'd like to see the gang. And about 2 days later, he called me and I said, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm going to Carolina Beach. I'm like, oh, you are? And he's like, yeah. I said, you want some company? And he's like, sure, come on down. So, look, I was a phenomenal liar when I was drinking. So I told husband number 2, I said, hey, Bojangles is getting ready to have a convention down at Carolina Beach. I need to go, and it's only for the weekend. And he's like, okay. Well, that's not why I'm going. I'm going down there to hook up with somebody because his wife had done left him. So I had to get my boss online because she's the manager at the Bojangles, so she can't be here if we're having a convention at the beach. So she stayed MIA, and I went to the beach, and we drank and carried on, and the weekend was coming up, and I wasn't ready to go home. So I just kept calling husband number 2, telling him the convention was extended. Now, look, I don't know how conventions work back then. So that convention, it was supposed to last a weekend, lasted like 10 days. And, I'd come home with some elaborate tale, and he would just be like, okay, okay. And so I came back after about 10 days. I got my first DUI going down there too. So that was probably 94. Traveling down I-40, had a 6-pack of beer with me and cruising along with traffic, and I get around Pender County, and all of a sudden I see a state trooper heading westbound, and I'm heading eastbound. His lights come on. I look around. I'm the only car on the road. Everybody else had disappeared, and I thought, well, that must be for me, you know. So I just pulled over and waited for him and drank my beer while I waited for him. He pulled me for speeding. That's what he was coming to get me for. But by the time he caught up with me, it was speeding and a DUI. So I sat in Pender County and cut up and talked to them, and had to get married man to get his kids. Well, he wasn't married then, but I had to get his kids to come bail me. It was a big mess, but that was DUI. So come back and packed my bags and walked out on husband number 2, leaving those 2 boys who are now like 15 and 16 in his care, which I've already told you was just a giant kid himself. So I moved in with the now not married man, and it was just party city. He was a self-proclaimed alcoholic, and I was like, man, I have arrived. I have found somebody that drinks like me, makes really good money. It's going to work out okay. And so we got married in 1998. He did know of my health status, and that didn't seem to bother him. And that's when I crossed the line of just drinking when I could, to alcoholism, because it was just full reign. You know, I could drink when I wanted to, what I wanted to. I very quickly became a blackout drinker. Matter of fact, that was my goal. You know, let's transport. If you drink enough, that you just get transported and you find out where you are when you come to. And sometimes it's not where you left, and sometimes it is where you left. And sometimes people are really upset with you, and you don't have any idea because you were being transported while that was going on. But I became a daily drinker. If my eyes were open, I was drinking. 2 a.m. was no different than 2 p.m. And I was easily drinking a 5th of vodka a day myself. And I got my second DUI in 99, I believe it was. I got T-boned. I was driving down the road and somebody ran a stop sign and T-boned me. And now I'm guilty. I'm guilty as the day is long, but I'm trying not to go back to the Forsyth County Jail, but I can't keep my mouth shut. So we're in the back of the police car filling out reports, and I'm just rah, 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 rah. And that state trooper can smell it on me. And he's like, well, let's do a breathalyzer on you. And I blew what I always blew, which was like 0.17, which there are people with much higher blood counts, but that was good enough for me. And so I got lucky on that one. I got off on that one when we finally went to court for a technical issue. He had called in another officer to take me downtown. The other officer never did a road sobriety, never did a breathalyzer or nothing, and $3,500 later with an attorney. Got that one done. I got my next DUI in probably 2001, so I'm just like on a roll now. You know, I've got one in 94, I've got one in the late 90s, and my best friend, the manager of the Bojangles, they had a place at Lake Norman. And so I was going down there to visit them and drinking. Of course, you got to drink to go anywhere. And if you're like me, you got to drink before, just to get the courage to go somewhere and get in the car. So I was going on down I-40 and took that 77 South ramp just a tad too fast and just sideswiped the guardrail all the way down, and two people, I used to say with nothing better to do, but what they were doing was trying to save themselves and anybody else, called highway patrol on me. And they followed me all the way to Lake Norman, and I lost them. I lost them in Lake Norman. And I ran in the house, and I mean, the vehicle was just tore up. It was a Jeep Laredo, so it had that plastic siding. It was chewed all to daylight. And I went in there and told my friend, I'm like, oh my God, I've done wrecked this car. I can't take it back. I need a drink, and I need to get in the shower. I'm taking a shower, and I'm like, I'm in the shower, and he's like, ma'am, this is State Officer so-and-so. I have a warrant out here for your arrest. And I'm like, oh my God. So I got to serve with the DUI while taking a shower. And anyway, went down, got myself out. We ran to Charlotte, got the part to fix that. But anyway, so in March is not a friendly year to me, and that'll reveal itself. In March of 2005, on the 21st, it was a Monday morning. Me and that man did get married in 1998. I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and he wasn't in bed. Now, this was his house, but I made owner took claim of it. I woke up at about 2, and he wasn't in the bed, and I was like, I know he is not down there in my kitchen making a mess. And so I got up and walked. Our bedroom was on the second floor. I turned on that switch for the lights, and there he was, laying at the bottom of the steps, his feet still on step number 2 from the bottom. And I thought, ain't no way he is that drunk still that he has like passed out. He was dead on the doorknob. I didn't know it at the time. I kept trying to wake him up, dialed 911. That is not something anybody wants to go through. I can guarantee you that. I had the sheriff's department, I had the crime scene investigators, I had EMS and the coroner all in my house, and for like several hours. And the whole time I was on that phone with 911, I said, can I drink a beer? Can I drink a beer? And they're like, no, ma'am, we don't advise you to do that. And I said, well, can you bring me some Valium or something? I'm like, it's spooky. If you live out in the middle of nowhere and there's a dead body in your house, for me, that was just spooky. The family accused me of killing them. And so anyway, I gave up on living. I really did. I gave up on living when that happened. I became extremely angry with God. I'd already walked away from God, but then I was just angry. And I blamed him for everything. I'm like, why on earth would you take him from me? Somebody that has good insurance, that can take care of me. And so-called friends came over and said, I know something that'll like take care of that. And between that and the booze, I spiraled extremely fast. My late husband left me more money than anybody should leave an alcoholic, although I don't think he knew what was to come. As a matter of fact, I'm certain he didn't. But I lost an enormous amount of weight in a very short time. And in July 12th of 2005, or I guess it was 2006, I got my last DUI. I was running around with company I shouldn't have been running around with. I was going to wash my car. I mean, I really was. I pulled in a car wash bay, and I was digging in the change thing, and I looked up, and Winston-Salem's got me blocked in. They got both ends. And I'm one of those, if I'm caught, I'm not arguing with you. What do you want? And they said, can we search your car? And I'm like, might as well, because we're going to be standing around here for a while. So that was my last DUI, July 12th, 2006. So I went to court, and, it must have been 2005. So I went to court, and Judge Fine, I got him again. We're just about on first name basis, too. He says, I'm giving you 2 8-month sentences. I'm going to he didn't say boxcar them, but he says they're going to run concurrently. I always have to think of that word, consecutively and concurrently. He's like, but I'm going to give you a break, and you're going to do 90 days in the county jail, and then I'm going to send you home, and you're going to be on intensive probation. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's not a pleasant experience either. Unless you have POs that really don't care, I reckon. I couldn't leave the house after 6 p.m. at night until 6 a.m. And so I got released. PO came by, and I had a field officer, and I had one I had to report to. That field officer never saw me straight, never saw me sober. The one at the office, me and her didn't get along so well because I couldn't give her what she wanted. However, she never would revoke my probation. I walked out of her office several times, and I just said, I'm not doing this. If you want me, come get me. So my brother came to see me I got off of that in February of 2007. And I thought, man, I beat the system. I'm off that 6 months intensive probation. I just got to worry about the next 5 years. And my brother came to visit me on April 15th, 2007. And so give you a history of the way I was living. I owned a house free and clear from the bank twice. The one me and my husband shared when I went that little 90 days. My sister-in-law sold that and bought me another house, but I had no lights because I refused to pay the light bill. I had no water, because I refused to pay the water. It was interfering with what I wanted to do, which was drink, and I became creative at dumpster diving. So me and Food Line had a engagement all the time. They were unaware of the engagement for quite a while. Stores throw away really good stuff, by the way, and not good, nutritious food, but they throw. So anyway, I was dumpster diving and living in the dark, and I was perfectly okay with that. And my brother came to see me on April 15th, 2007, and I was a rail. I was skinny. He told me later I was a stick person. If you turned me sideways, you couldn't see nothing but my head. But unbeknownst to me, he went to my PO, and he said, I don't know what's going on. You obviously haven't seen my sister in a while. You're either going to get her off the street in 48 hours, or I'm going over your head. And he did know a lot of people in the judicial system. And so, sure enough, April 16th, I wake up and I've got Winston-Salem's finest parked out in my front yard, And And I thought, well, they'll eventually go, and then I can do what I want. They never left. They did shift changes right there in front of my house. One left, because they knew I was in there. I knew they were out there, and neither one of us was going to give. And then on April 17th, I just gave up. I just gave up. And keep that April 17th in your brain of '07. And so I just gave up. I'm like, I'm done. Let's go get this over with. So I went back to court. My first grandson was born while I was locked up. And my middle son brought him to see me about 2.5 weeks before they shipped me off again. But when I went to court, that Judge Fine, again, he said, I'm tired of seeing you. He said, I told you. He says, I'm revoking your probation. You're going to finish out that sentence, which came to 13 months. I had to do in Raleigh. And so I can remember getting to Raleigh in late May. My birthday's in May, so I spent a lot of birthdays behind bars because spring and summer just seemed like a good time to act a fool and get arrested. So I got there and I got back on Raleigh camp. I'm in my 40s. I'm in my mid-40s at this time. And it takes a long time because they don't process one person at a time. They process bus loads. Y'all see those inmate buses going down the road? They headed to Raleigh. And whoever they got on there is getting ready to get that wonderful physical. And so I got that physical again. But I can remember I finally got to my dorm about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was laying there and I was like, how did I end up here again 17 years later? Now, for being charged, I got convicted of 3 DUIs and can't even count how many driving while license revoked, because like so many of us when we drink or when I drink, I have somewhere to go and somebody to see, and they don't know I'm coming. I don't know who I'm going to go see, and I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm going to go and I'm going to drive, which counts for a whole lot of getting pulled. And I was also call you in the middle of the night and let's have a conversation. A lot of people don't appreciate that, especially if they have a job, and I'm drunk talking. And so anyway, I just lay there and I thought, how did I get back here? Now you would think anybody with half a brain would realize why they're back there. And so I lay there, and you know what, when you're there, have y'all ever watched these military, these GI movies where they show a big room, a big bunker, and it's just got bunk beds after bunk bed after just bam, 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 40 of them in a room, in an area? Well, that's what it's like in prison. No privacy. Well, they don't care what time you get to bed. They've got a routine. 4 o'clock in the morning, they're Gomer Pyle, blowing that whistle. Get up. You got 30 minutes to get in line and go to chow. I did that for a while, and in about 3 months there, I said, God, I cannot do this. Y'all think one or a couple or whatever women is tough? Try being around 25 of them. It is not easy. And so I was laying in, I got moved to a long-termers dorm. I don't know why they moved me up there. And my roommate was for second-degree murder, and I was like, why am I rooming with somebody like that? So anyway, I went to bed one night, and I said, God, I just can't do this. You got to get me out of here. You got to put me somewhere. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, the CO came and woke me up. She said, pack your bags, you're being transferred. And I said, where? She's like, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I was like, Rocky Mount. Now look, I have a lot of anxiety. Booze took that away. I could go anywhere, do anything as long as I could drink. Now we talking about moving me around. I don't know where we going. I am just fit to be tied, but I am glad to get off that camp. I'd also, while I was there, had heard of this place called the Mary Frances Center in Tarboro. I got to speed this up. It was, keyword, a one-of-a-kind treatment center in the United States, contracted with the Department of Corrections. If you were female and you had 2 years or less on your sentence, you could finish your sentence out there. And so that's where I got transferred to. And guess who was my counselor for group therapy? The one and only Sandy Lampert. She did my intake and started asking questions. She got to question 5. She's like, "You're an alcoholic. We don't have to take any more of these." And I kind of took offense to that because I don't think I have a drinking problem still. I know I got a problem with other stuff. So anyway, I halfway paid attention, halfway listened, did just enough to not go back out the back door. You don't ever want to go out the back door. You want to go out the front door. I lost my dot. They were on dot system. You know, if you had a colored dot, you had this privilege. I couldn't ever keep the simplest dot. Sandy would just walk up to me in the hallway and just pull my dot off, and I'd be like, "What's that for?" And she would explain what it was for, and I'd be like, "Okay." Anyway, I did leave there on May 10th, 2008. My aunt and uncle picked me up. I had money coming in. My late husband left me very well off. I went through a bunch of it, but I was drawing this pension plan. And so I had money saved up, and they rented me an apartment, bought me secondhand furniture, and picked me up from Fountain and sat with me. I got released on a Saturday, and they stayed with me Saturday and Sunday, and they were heading back Monday morning. Monday morning, my dad was traveling in with his long-term girlfriend, and then on May 14th, that's my birthday, my belly button birthday. He got ready to leave, and he's like, "Well, I got you something for your birthday." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he gave me some money. And they left. And they wasn't gone no time. And my brain started telling me, "Rhonda, you are in a town where you know nobody." I was in Tarboro. You know, it's just a little town. It's a retirement community. They had told me that unless I changed my thinking, I'm talking about the CEO, Sandy, the whole thing. They tried so hard. They had sat me down, told me, "Unless you change, Rhonda, nothing, you'll never make it." And so they left, and my dad gave me money, and about 45 minutes later, I'm thinking, or my brain's telling me, "It's your birthday. Everybody has left you. You don't know nobody. You know what? You just been locked down for 13 months. 9 months of that, you've had AA shoved down your throat. You deserve a drink." And I thought, that's a marvelous idea. So I called a cab, and I said, "Take me to the closest ABC store." And so I went in there, and I got a half a gallon, got home, poured me a drink, jelly jar glass. You know, I was always a two-fisted drinker, liquor in this hand, chaser in this hand. I got one drink. It went down, came right back up as fast as it went down, and insanity immediately jumped on me. And I panicked. I'm like, "Oh my God. Somebody that doesn't even know me is going to come knock on my door, doesn't even know where I live, and they're going to find out I'm drinking, and they're going to go back and tell them, that they were right." And so for 4 years, I hid that. Now, my first sponsor didn't have a body. She didn't have a name. I don't even know what name I gave people, but I can give them a last name because, gosh, there might be somebody out there with that name. and they check up on me. Started carrying the message back into the Mary Frances Center in 2009. My motives were all wrong. I wanted to go back and prove to them that I was still sober, that I was doing right. And Pam approached me coming down the hallway one day. I don't really know Pam. Pam had brought her story in a few times, and she says, "You need a sponsor and I'll take you on." I was like, how does she know that? How does she know that other sponsor don't even have a body? Anyway, so Pam worked with me for about a year. Required that I move to the Came to Believe group. Had to start going there, and sometimes we just outgrow each other, and so I was about 3 weeks without a sponsor again. I wasn't looking, to be honest, and everybody told me I needed to go to Amy, that Amy wouldn't come to me, and so I went and asked Amy. So, and Amy started doing step work. We go on a retreat every September. It's called Meet Up Mountain. You probably heard about it. And we worked 12 steps in a weekend. And this was 2012 or 13, somewhere around there. I believe it was 12, our second year. Kathy Kane, if y'all remember her, she was my tent mate. And for 4 years, I had lied behind the podium about my sobriety date. I would tell people, my sobriety date is 4/17/07. And I became crazy. And when I say crazy, you can ask Amy. I was calling her, telling her the FBI was coming to get me, and just telling her all kinds of crazy stuff. She thought it was the TV shows I was watching. I was watching like Dateline and Cops, and she put me on the TV ban, and I actually abided that TV ban. But nothing's changing. I'm still just like insane and crazy. And so we were at that retreat, and I blurted out that I drank again. Well, now it's out of the bag. So we're doing our 5th step, and I told Amy, I said, I need to talk to you. She's like, okay, what's going on? And I told her, and y'all know this look on Amy. She went like that when I told her I had drank. She's like, well, that explains a whole lot, Rhonda. So then she didn't quite know what to do with it, because it was just a swallow. It wasn't even the whole drink. And she called Susie D in, and Susie asked me what my intentions were. And I said, drink the whole thing. And she's like, well, that's a relapse. We're going to call that a relapse. Amy said, give me that 5-year medallion back. That was a very humbling, and I was instructed I had to make amends to everybody. So today, as you know, I have a sponsor. Sandy's my grand sponsor, but she's just as quick as Amy to call me up on the phone and correct me and get on to me. But she always asks me, are you mad? Are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not mad. You're coming from a place of love. And we have to hear things we don't want to hear. So I sponsor women. I'm active in service work. The CEO of that treatment center, I did not like her when I was there, but I love that woman today. She's dying a very slow death, and so me and Amy and a few other people carry a message to her every Thursday. We buy food, we take it over there, we break bread with her, we help her do whatever we want to do. I got my license back. They told me I'd never have a driver's license. I got my license back. I bought a house. I broke my hip in 2022. Never took pain meds for that, and just kept right on rocking. And life is really good. I've got now 6 grandkids ranging from 17 to 3 years old. None of them have ever seen what their dads have seen. My oldest son, he had just washed his hands of me, never wanted to see me, and just sticking with the program, doing what I was told to do. That relationship got mended. Me and my mom in 14 reconnected and started working on a relationship. In 2019, she was diagnosed with cancer. I'm hurrying, Sandy. She got diagnosed with, in 2019, got diagnosed with cancer in February. We buried her 3 weeks later. It happened extremely fast, which I'm grateful that it happened fast. We wasn't on the roller coaster. That same month, in that same year, in 2019, I lost my mom on March 5th. I lost an unborn granddaughter on March 25th. And my son lost his job. And then we roll around to March of 2020, and we lost my brother. His roommate came home, and he was deceased. And through all that, I've never drank. I watched Amy walk through her dad's death, so I knew it was possible. I knew where I had to be, and I was able to be of service to my family when my mom passed away and when my brother passed away. So life's good. I go home every 2 months, hang out with my dad. Whatever he wants done, I do it. And that's hard because, well, it's just a whole nother ball of wax. But elderly parents are hard to deal with. So anyway, life's good. I have service positions, and my time is definitely up. If none of y'all got anything out of it, I did. I remember, just reminds me of how fast I can go back to where I came from. So thank you for your attention.